This is Truthful Manipulation, where truth is the truth and reality is made real and clear to understand. I'm Dave Kelsey, and I'm here today with my co-host, H. Daniel Mujahid.
Today, we thought that it would be smart for us to listen to some of the feedback we got from some of the listeners over your concerns about what Dave and I talked about in terms of our definition for, we spent a lot of time talking about woman and mother and female. And the questions that we got revolve around how are we distinguishing what is it that we're saying is the case in the Bible or in the scripture regarding these roles, women, female, and woman, female, mother, etc., even wife. And so what's important is that we did come away earlier, I think, with a pretty good sense of agreement that there is a difference between a male or a boy and a man, right? There's a difference between a boy and a man, yet they can both be males, yes. We also established that a woman is a type of man. So what we're talking about, Dave and I, is trying to get us to understand how language has been manipulated to control the level or the way we see things. And this is really playing itself out in harmful ways with males. Because if we only see people on a physical level and miss the spiritual and the mental level, we miss the person. Because the physical level, let's face it, now we know our body is not us. Our body is our body. That's not us. We're not defined in that physical dimension. We are human being, Homo sapien, which is mental, spiritual, psychological qualities and existence. So what Dave and I are trying to do here is to get you to think about this language in scripture. When it's saying woman, many times it may be talking about what is the complement that makes the society whole. And Dave pointed out the example, the case of the woman being, the church being the bride to Jesus, or the complement for human society, what makes the society complete. So this whole idea of woman is not to be taken on just the physical genetic sense. Woman has far more dimensions. Female is a type of male or females. God made the male and the female, remember? In the scripture, it said that he made the male and the female and then named both of them Adam at one time in the beginning. In the beginning, the male and the female, he made and created them and named them Adam, male and female. So we got to understand that when we're talking about scripture and its application, even in education, all the dimensions of education in scripture, science, religion, there's points of agreement once we understand how they are connected. So we wanted to say that to you about the show last week, and hopefully that'll be a little bit of a clarity. And Dave, you may want to add something to that.
Well, Daniel, as we look at the way that society is today, I think we have to take this right back to the young men that are in the audience, and we have to speak to you in particular because it's going to be your generation that's going to have to be the ones that change the attitude and the perspective of the way that women are looked at by males in society. And Daniel, you and I have talked about this in length at different times, but religion has always manipulated things because religion was always a male-dominated profession. Most people that went into religion were all males, and because it was all males that were looked at as the authority figures, they chose to manipulate the scriptures in ways that made them to be out to be more than what God actually intended for males to be, because males and females, like we talked about last week, are supposed to be equal on all parts as being human. But that isn't
Yes,
how
that's a very good.
but that isn't how
Yes,
society looks at that today, Dan. Look at
right.
the people that are in charge. Look at what's happening with this Christian nationalism in the US. These guys actually preach prosperity and greed, and somehow or another, if you haven't made it to some socioeconomic level, you're less than a human being to them. And because women tended to not be able to, or because of rules and things that men set up, never were able to make the same amount of income that men were. It gave them a serious disadvantage, particularly when the men weren't acting correctly. They were going out there having children, then they're dumping this wife to go on to that one and complaining about things. This isn't how things were supposed to be set up. Males, you're
Yes.
supposed
Now,
to be
on
an
that point,
example.
now right there, Dave, one bonus that I don't want to miss that you've helped us think about is when you talked about the theologians and the cultural or the human input in terms of the translation and the understanding and the perception of what is in the religion. And obviously, right there, the bonus is this, ladies and gentlemen: make a distinction from now on between scripture and religion. See, because as Dave was saying, religion is the practice, the cultural tendencies and the rules and the dogma and rules and the laws that we put into this way of practicing our rituals. That is not the same as what is the scripture. The scripture is above that. The scripture is still clean and pure of that influence and that tendency or that projection or that idea that says this is what is meant. This is my opinion of what is meant, or this is what I need it to mean, or this is what it must mean in order to benefit my control of you or others or them. So here, keep in mind as the bonus that scripture is still clean and that the manipulation is happening historically over time and is being done by real, not spook people, by real people,
No, it's
and we
being
can.
done by those that proclaim to be theologians, those that claim to be experts, those that claim to be in the know. But are they
Well,
really?
maybe I was being too kind when I said they were still real people. Because in some cases, you're right, Dave. They may not even be people anymore. To keep going down that line of manipulation and schemes of evil, at some point in time, your humanity does come into question. Good point, Dave.
Yeah,
Go right ahead,
well, the
sir.
funny part about that is I saw this thing on Instagram the other day, and I can't remember where it was, but it was a youth pastor somewhere, and he said, I put into Chat GPT, what would you do, or what would I do, or what would you do if you were the devil? And he paraphrased to
Hmm.
say, which you may be,
Hmm.
to Chat GPT. And guess what it came
Okay.
back and said?
What did it say?
It came back and said things along the line of, I would convince people that reality is not real and that truth is not truth. And I would get them to fight amongst each other, and I would get them to fight amongst each other religiously. And the bottom line was, I'll sit back and watch it all and watch them devour themselves, because all I need to do is give them a little bit of slack. And because of the history of mankind, we know that they will just eat each other alive and do my bidding, and I won't have to do anything other than sit back and watch it happen because I'll have convinced everybody that I'm not real.
Well, that's interesting, Dave. That's like stealing. In other words, they're stealing the playbook of the American federal government and administration. Just steal that playbook, and here it is. You're doing these things that you just outlined. But that's certainly something that we can see now. But the question becomes, what do we do about it as human beings? And back to your point about what are we going to do, Dave?
Well, what are you going to do? You have people that have the ability to do something that are doing nothing. I mean, listen, for the first time in the history of America, we're openly murdering people without provocation, without any endangerment to us, but yet we're murdering people. And then when there are survivors or wounded, we have the audacity to go back and kill them. That's not who we are. That's not who we are as human beings. That is not who we are. That's not what we stand for. It's time for the people that are in charge to stop being little boys and little girls and stand up for what's right.
Yeah, that might be a tall order given the design by which this presider has put together his federal team and done a lot of work on eliminating those types of free thinkers who would have integrity and the Constitution at heart. So we have put ourselves in a very awkward situation where we must stand up and speak up for democracy and for the Constitution, or we won't have it. So
we're already losing it. Hold on.
Yes.
We're already losing it. We're losing it on a daily basis. You've got somebody in the White House that is making every power grab that every criminal would ever try to make while they're there. Because once again, we go back to that supremely corrupt Supreme Court, don't we? Because they haven't put a stop to any of this stuff. I saw it was a U of M professor the other day that said he taught economics at the University of Michigan. He's got over 500 freshmen in his economics class. You know what his comment was?
No, go right ahead.
Every single one of them is better prepared than our federal government is to run it economically. Now that's economics 101. But when you've got, as you say, a presider that proclaims that he got this great education, that his dad bought him, because all I know is if I had gone to university and I had passed, no matter what it would be, I'd be screaming from the rooftops that that's what I had done. But when, once again, you cheat your way all the way through life, and now you're going to cheat your way all the way to the grave. I mean, I don't understand what people are not seeing. This is someone that is totally delusional. They've lost it. They don't care anything about anybody but themselves. But I find this
So
also funny.
audience,
Hold on, Daniel. I find this also funny. You got this guy named Stephen Miller. Okay, Stephen Miller didn't like his neighbors because the neighbors were virtually ostracizing them. Rightfully so, because of the shitty positions that he's taken against other people. So guess what Stephen Miller does? Do you know what Stephen Miller does?
what's that?
He puts his $3.75 million house up for sale and moves into a government housing on a military base. Now, let's get this straight. This dude has a full-time government job that we're paying him for, and then he moves into government housing and they call us lowlifes? That sounds like on the government's dime and living on our expense. Sounds a lot like welfare to me, doesn't it to you?
And I think that our audience, Dave and I, we do want to confess to you that currently we don't have the means and the resources to drive this message to the youth and the children, and we need help because they understand the world that's coming, the machine languages, the AI, the generative, etc. So what Dave has just challenged us with, those of us who heard this message, he just said that if when asked what it would do if it were the devil, that AI itself, ChatGPT, says, OpenAI said, Wikipedia even says, I would do as the devil, I would do what I'm seeing right now being done and practiced in the federal administration of the United States of America. Now, if that is not something that we need to make sure that the youth are hearing, because they are the ones, for example, as Dave is concerned about, that will have to design integrity and ethics into these new languages and codes and etc.
But Daniel,
algorithms.
once
So,
again, how do you do that? I
well,
hear this all the time, but there's no one that I've spoke to that has anything to do with the design of AI that's going, I have a solution that's going to stop this from being a problem, because the people that are doing the designing today, or the people that are buying the vast majority of the chips, are all billionaires. And do you really trust them, Daniel? Do you trust what
no, but
these
that's
guys'
my point.
judgments are?
No, Dave, but my point is that we don't need to start from their perspective, but where we are. And this is why I'm calling your and my appeal to the people who are listening. We're just simply asking that they make sure that these little fine points that we're making is shared. They can share it at the dinner table. They can share it at the coffee pots. They can share it on the soccer fields. They can share it with their friends in the libraries or at the stores, Pete's, or at the
Daniel, I
coffee
think
houses.
I think, look, let's not make
Let me finish, Dave. Let me finish. Let me
okay,
finish
go
my
ahead.
point. I just made my point. Let me make my point first. When you share the fact that it doesn't matter what the system of knowledge is, all systems of knowledge come from a single source. So therefore, we as a human being, we have a responsibility, as we talk about in our show, for codes of ethics and integrity. And the youth just need to understand that game is being played, Dave. We can impact there. We may not can impact on the AI, but we can impact what our children listen to and what we say to them. And that's where we should start.
Well, I agree that the message needs to be passed along to the youth. The youth need to hear this, but the youth also need to understand that that phone is not your friend all the time. And that's going to be hard.
Correct.
And that's going to be hard. And I know that's hard to hear. And I know that you don't want to hear that. But none of these big companies are actually out there for your best interest, not your best mental interest, not your best physical interest. What they are out there as is to get as much attention from you as much of the time as they can. So you talked about having conversations here and there, and what I'm going to say is let's take it even simpler. Have a conversation with whoever's sitting next to the next time you sit down. Just start a conversation, because that's how America became the country that it was. We didn't know each other. When we all came here, we didn't know each other. When you move to a new area, you don't know people, but you start conversations and you learn about them. And by learning about them, you learn about their cultures, and you learn that we all have more in common than we have apart. And for the males out there, remember what I said. It takes more to be a man than just being a male. And for the young ladies out there, remember, it takes more to be a woman than it does to be a female. And with that, that's this week's episode of Truthful Manipulation. We'd like you to comment on today's show at truthfulmanipulation@gmail.com. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe at truthfulmanipulation.com. Pick up a copy of our book, Truthful Manipulation. It'll help you see things that you may have missed. And America, keep your head up and keep moving towards a freer place for all of us. Thank you this week, and goodbye, America.